Well, this week's open has not seen any sort of a recovery on Bitcoin, and as a result, people are starting to panic, especially about their altcoins. So I'm bringing you this impromptu update. I don't normally do market updates on Tuesdays, but because of what is going on and because I can see the panic all over the internet about altcoins, I wanted to bring you this extra video where we can focus on altcoins and make some sort of a plan. If you didn't happen to already get out, then what can we do from here on in? So that's what I'm going to do in this video. Be sure to smash that like button, and nice and early. We're going to start with Bitcoin, and then I'm going to move into what might happen if Bitcoin is to see more downside, what's probably going to happen with the altcoins. Now let's have a look at Bitcoin so far this week. I'm on a small time frame, 15-minute. We talked about liquidity levels in my last update, up at around this level right here, and there was a couple of levels to watch for if the price was to continue rising, where to look for reversal signals, and this was one of those areas. So this was an update that I did on Sunday in the Discord, and you can see here that I've got this finger pointing this way as a level to look for potential reversals. And when we have a look at the chart now and move across left, that was this zone right here. Now, what happened from there yesterday, it did look like there was going to be some sort of a bounce because price came back down and it held above the low of the week, which is the lowest point that price went in the week prior. And all of this together usually does form the perfect place to look for a W formation, which is the beginning of a trend reversal. However, trends are not confirmed without a break and retest of the 50 EMA. So let's zoom in and see what Asia and so far UK have done today, because this is a really good lesson. When trading the Asia session specifically, the job of Asia is to set the initial high and low of the day. So at some point in the Asia session, and in crypto, I have found that it can also happen in the dead gap zone. So for part of the TBD system, we actually measure the initial high and low of the day from the beginning of the dead gap zone. It gives us a lot more accuracy. And what happens is when the market opens, one of those gets set first. So in this case, we can see the initial high of the day got set first. How you know when the high or the low of the day is set is with a hammer, like you can see in this candle right here. And then following that, you'll have up to 90 minutes of consolidation. So following that hammer, if we take the next candle across to the end of this consolidation, that is 1 hour and 50 minutes. So this right here is confirmation that the initial high of today was in. Now we know Asia's job is to set the initial high and low of the day. So if the initial high gets set first, we can make a pretty good assumption that price is going to head down from there to then set the initial low of the day. Now, where that goes to, we don't know, but we know that it's probably going to head down from there once that is set. So therefore, if you were to believe that this was a bullish move and were awaiting a retest, if you know how to trade Asia, then you would realize, hold on, Asia has set the initial high. It needs to go to set the initial low next. So therefore, there wouldn't be any long positions. If this was going to end up being a trend change, there wouldn't be any long positions until the initial low of the day was set. And so you would basically be hands off if you were a day trader that trades the Asia time zone, and that would have kept you safe because turns out once Asia actually opened after the dead gap zone had set the initial high, it gave us that big move to the downside that ended up actually breaking the low of the week. So therefore, that makes this whole move up here just a bit of a liquidity grab because people were still holding on hopes that support was going to come soon and that we're still technically bullish and yada, yada, yada. It was still easy enough to get people to open long positions here and essentially get trapped. Now, when we have a look at what's happened since the initial low of the day was set, what price is currently doing is it's just consolidating. So it's been consolidating into the end of Asia, and it's also now consolidating at about halfway through the UK session. There is a chance that US is going to make the move today, and I'll tell you why. Tomorrow is a bank holiday for the US. So if the US doesn't make moves today, it's likely not to make moves tomorrow. And that may be the reason why UK so far is consolidating. When the UK consolidates, because that's not its typical behavior, the UK typical behavior is to run a slow trend. It's not doing that right now. And so when it's doing something unexpected, you should have your hands off until something becomes more clear. Usually, if UK consolidates, US is going to make a move, because all consolidation is the market maker building contracts. So currently we're consolidating under the 50 EMA, and we may continue to consolidate into towards the end of the UK session. There usually is an extension in the last hour of the UK session. So that extension should give you a hint of what the US is about to do. And here's what the hint can look like. If UK continues to consolidate to the end of UK, and then somewhere around that last hour, we get an extension to the upside and then a pullback right before the UK closes, then in the US session, I would be looking for a lower high. If the US session opens and gives you that lower high sometime within the first couple of hours, that was the setup there, and we're likely to head down further. So look out for something that looks kind of like this, which will give us the hint that we're not done yet and there's more downside to come. Now, before I go on to the bullish scenario to look at, let's have a look at what is going on in Trading Light to see if there is any orders waiting lower for this. And we can see that there still is. So we have this big red zone between 64,300 to 63,500. Now, above price, we don't seem to have any large short orders currently. At best, we have this one up here, which is sitting at 67,300. I mean, that's quite a far distance from price, so I wouldn't really say that is a consideration. That would only be a consideration if the trend actually changes and we start creating higher highs and higher lows, because that would be all the way back up here. So this is a more likely scenario for Bitcoin, and your bullish scenario would be the same. UK continues to consolidate, but instead that extension at the end of UK actually extends to the downside. But if it extended to the downside, you wouldn't want it to extend lower than this here. If it keeps these traders trapped, then that could be a hint that they're keeping them trapped for a reason, and then you would wait to see if US gives you a higher low, again, sometime in the first 2 hours potentially. Can take longer, but ideally within the first 2 hours. And if that were to happen, that's when you would expect that we're going to get some kind of a relief bounce. So the only way that would happen would be if these traders remain trapped. Okay, so this would be a day trading setup. Now, what does that mean for your altcoins? We need to zoom out to the daily time frame for that. Now, for altcoins, I'm focusing on what you're potentially holding spot. We're not looking at day trades for altcoins. We're looking at what to do if you are holding altcoins that are potentially in the red or are coming back to entries, or you're in profit now, but you want to secure as much of that profit as possible. So we're still in the situation where the price on the daily time frame is currently at the halfway mark of this range. The longer we hold here without breaking below the 50% level of this vector, which is sitting at 63,870, the longer we do that, the more chance we have of a bounce out into the upside. It's not looking great, but there is still some hope, because we are right at that level where we would wait for a bounce. But here's the thing, price isn't going to go up like this, create an M formation, come down and just shoot straight back out, like without some kind of massive bullish catalyst, which we don't have any of them right now. So unless something unexpected happened that caused Bitcoin to hold this level, we should expect that at some point in time, they're going to come for these lower levels of liquidity. And that's fine for Bitcoin, because when we think about it, if it came down for these lower levels, at worst case, at this point in time, it's about $53,000. Worst case, and that is still well and truly above the bear market bottom. So for Bitcoin, if it comes down to the bottom of the range, it's still a buy opportunity. If it comes only to the middle of the range, it's a potential DCA opportunity. You know, it's not an actual worry. But the problem is, if Bitcoin does keep heading down into this liquidity zone, if it does break below the 63,870, and then it comes down for this even lower liquidity, it's really going to hurt your altcoins. And that is why for the last few videos, I've been telling you on every high or low, reassess your altcoin portfolio and get out of the things that are not doing well for you right now. Would you take the risk on Bitcoin? Yeah, at this point in the cycle, you probably would. Should you take the risk on altcoins? No, at this point in the cycle, you probably shouldn't. I mean, let's line up our dominances. On the left here, we have Bitcoin dominance, and the Bitcoin dominance is currently rising. Now, the problem with the Bitcoin dominance rising, but the Bitcoin price declining, that combination of the two means that your altcoins will dump even harder. On every move down that Bitcoin makes, your altcoins are really massively going to suffer. This little cheat sheet here, you can screenshot from this video. This little cheat sheet shows you how the altcoins will react depending on what the Bitcoin dominance and the Bitcoin price is doing. So you can see there, when the dominance is increasing, but the Bitcoin price is decreasing, that's when we get the major altcoin dump. And that is why I've been cautioning you to get out of altcoins if they're not serving you well. When we have a look at the total three. Now, the total three is all altcoins and it excludes Bitcoin and Ethereum. So when we have a look at this total three, look at what's happened here. It's broken the trend line to the downside. So your alts are really going to hurt really badly, but it's not too late to get out. If we get a grip and have a look at what's going on, we're still fairly close to the top of the range. And this is why when we have a look at Bitcoin price, we think it's not so bad. Maybe it will hold. And look, maybe it will. We don't know that yet. If we were going to hold, we would consolidate for quite some time. So it's time to think about that. But whilst it does consolidate, it really is a good chance for you to make a decision on what to do with your altcoins. Really go over your portfolios and decide what's serving you and what's not. And so when you look at Bitcoin on the daily time frame and you actually zoom out that far, it doesn't feel so bad. But once we switch to altcoins, we'll look at a major one like Ethereum. We have failed to repeat the high of March 2024. Ethereum also potentially doesn't look so bad because we've had this big move to the upside and this could be a retracement before further upside. So Ethereum is another one to watch because until we break below the 200 EMA, it's not massively bearish. However, can you afford to wait for it to break below the 200 EMA? Because that is $3,000 and that's a lot to give back between where price is now. It would be another 11% or so drop. So anyway, that's a decision you have to make. For me, I don't sell Ethereum because I hold it for very, very long term, but I am waiting to see if we get around a 3,300 ETH. And if we hold that level, that would be a DCA area, but we're not there yet. Now let's look at a different altcoin like Link. Now, in comparison to Bitcoin, this looks atrocious, right? All of this area here is a lower low from this previous consolidation here. We've done 100% return of this vector area right here. The only positive on Link is it's currently holding the 800 EMA, but it's very far from its last high. And then when you look at Link against Bitcoin, it is absolutely dying. And this is what you're going to see most altcoins look like right now. And that's because of the Bitcoin dominance. If we zoom out even more, we haven't been this level against Bitcoin since 2019. You know, it's against Bitcoin, it's a terrible investment. Let's look at Solana. Solana is also coming back to its support currently. The positive Solana has right now on this particular candle before it closes and it's still got 14 hours is that it's at the 200 EMA right now, which is retesting this kind of support area. And until it breaks that support, there's a chance that it may bounce, you know, but then you got to consider everything else macro. If Bitcoin doesn't look like it's going to bounce, then Solana sure as hell probably won't bounce. So therefore, are you better off taking as much profit on this as you can? Wait, let it do its bleed out, however long it takes, and then take those profits that you made from it or cut any losses now so that when we do eventually come down, you can get back in. Look at Solana against Bitcoin. I mean, this is a terrible looking price action for potential upside. Sure, again, it hasn't broken the support yet, but is it about to? And if it does, is it time for you to make the call now on what you're going to do with it? And let's go to crypto bubbles. Let's zoom out to 1 year and let's have a look at any altcoin against Bitcoin. For the last year, we can see here what has outperformed Bitcoin. Unfortunately, most of them are meme coins. That's how it's been this cycle. What can you do? But there are some good things here for you to look at to start planning for what to buy back into eventually if we do keep dropping even further. And you should do this pretty much now because these numbers will change if we keep heading down even further. But from here, it's very easy to see what was a better performer against Bitcoin. And you can find some good things that do actual good things. It doesn't have to be meme coins. You know, we've got CAS, we've got Solana, we've got 𝗟𝗶𝗃𝗲, TON, and Rune, you know, there's some really good things there that you can start to chart on a higher time frame and decide when the time is right, which might be months away, we don't know, but when the time is right, what are you going to buy into first in order to make back any losses that you might decide to cut now? So that's one option of what you can do with your altcoins. But another one is, I just wanted to show you this channel here from 𝗟𝗶𝗃𝗏. He did a video yesterday that I watched that I thought was fantastic. Let me just see if I can find which one it was. Here we go. It was this one here. Just look for this title. Go to 𝗟𝗶𝗃𝗏's YouTube channel and watch this one right here, because he actually had a really, really good point that he made in this video. Now, here's an amazing trader through multiple cycles, really, really knows his shit, you know, and I highly respect his opinion, but he actually said something in this video that I thought was a very, very good point. Now, in that video, what he says is, even though he's expecting the market to come down a lot more, I think his target for Bitcoin is around $57,000. And what he's saying is, if that happens, the altcoins are massively going to bleed, exactly what we've been talking about on this video. But he's made the decision that he's going to hold through it. And the reason that he's made this decision is, A, he has more capital to put in when the time is right. And B, he doesn't want to try to guess how bad it's going to get. Even though he has a $57,000 target for Bitcoin, something might change and Bitcoin might hold at a higher level. And then he has to make the decision, if it doesn't come down far enough, is he now buying his altcoins back at a higher price? So that's also a really, really good consideration. And that's why no one can just tell you flat out, you should do this with your altcoins. It really is a personal decision. And if you're in a situation like that, where you have capital on the side to invest, you can handle a drawdown, you still believe that there is a lot more to go of the bull market, you believe this downtrend is temporary, but you don't want to try and pick the bottom, then yeah, you would just hold through the blood. And once it does bottom out, you would then use that extra capital that you had aside anyway to bring down your average entry of those altcoins. And in the long run, it probably won't matter, because, you know, the final altcoin season of the cycle, which is still so far away, these coins do hundreds and thousands of percent, and you're not really going to care about a 50% drawdown at the end of it. But that's not going to be the right answer for everyone, because for some people, they may already be fully positioned. They may have gone too heavy into one altcoin that is now absolutely really badly bleeding and looks like it has absolutely no hope. And if you can't add anything to it to make a recovery down the track, then you may be better off cutting it now or cutting it soon, taking back what you can get out of it, and then shifting it into some of these coins that have proven to be high performers so far this cycle. And that will help you to get a recovery sooner, but it's maybe a 1 to 2 month wait before you have the chance of that happening. So if you're in the situation where you don't want to hold through it, you want to get out, but you didn't get out in the prior warnings, then here's what I would do. Go to any altcoin that you have. Okay, I'm just going to use 𝗟𝗲 as an example. If you can see that it has a support level, so let's just pretend this price action wasn't here. Okay, we'll use a replay tool. So let's just pretend it was like this. You can identify this support, but you want to give it a chance. Maybe it will hold the support again and bounce out. It will do a little bit of a rally and you can get out at a higher price. In a situation like that, put a stop loss under the support on your exchange. That way, if it does hold the support and bounces out, you can make a manual decision to get out at a higher price. In the case that that bounce still ends up creating a lower high, you would recognize the lower high, and then you're getting out either at a less loss than getting out here, or you're getting out with more profit, depending on where you bought this thing, right? So that is option number one. But worst case scenario, if it breaks this support, you don't want to hold this, because you don't want to be having to make this decision at the next support, which can be another 43% drop before you get that opportunity to do the same thing again, okay? So if you want to give it a chance, give it the chance, but put a stop loss to cut your losses in the case that the chance doesn't play out, in which case when we look at 𝗟𝗲 in real time now, it didn't play out. And look what's happened. We've had this further drop down here, and that was the best you were going to get out at. This is the strategy I've actually done on a lot of the altcoins that we were holding at TTC in the Capital Club. We don't want coins to drop any further and we keep holding them. So we give it a chance. If it doesn't want to push out at all, we're just out and we'll recover later on. If you're already in the red at a level of support, don't hold to the next support that could be another 43% drop from where you are right now. Another thing you should do is chart that particular coin against Bitcoin. And if you do this, like, it's almost like a guarantee that you should get out of your altcoins. Let's have a look at 𝗖𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗃. This is the weekly for 𝗖𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗃. It is almost back at the lowest point it has ever been. Now, could it bounce there? Sure, it absolutely could. And if it does, well, great. Now I get to buy back in 25 to 30% cheaper rather than holding through that 48% drawdown and then trying to DCA here. When you chart altcoins, any altcoin that you like against Bitcoin, it should actually excite you. Now, I know that that sounds strange, but I'll tell you why it should excite you, because it is exciting me, especially those high performers. If you go and have a look at your high performers or anything that has done relatively okay in this cycle against Bitcoin, and then you chart them on a higher time frame against Bitcoin, and they're coming close to a very significant level of support on a macro time frame, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, that could be signaling a second chance opportunity in this cycle to build an altcoin portfolio if they hold those support levels and don't break below it. So whilst we're in this phase now of altcoins bleeding and people are panicking and they're focusing on what's happening now instead of thinking ahead, I highly encourage you to be the person that thinks ahead and starts to make a plan for what are you going to do when this bleed runs out, because it's not going to last forever. Set your levels and set your alerts to have a look at. Let me use one of these coins as an example to show you exactly what I mean. So we can pick any of these green ones here that have outperformed Bitcoin in the last 12 months. And now we're going to chart them against Bitcoin and see what's going on now. So just have a look at NIA. I'm only going to use one example, but this is exactly what I mean. When you have a look at the weekly time frame for NIA, and then we draw our basically all-time low, we've been here once here in 2021. We've been here again in October 2023. And look what's happening now. If it does come back and holds that support, if you are a fan of NIA, you know, maybe you bought NIA down here and you held through all here and now it's coming back down. Instead of holding through this drawdown and it comes back to your entry at another 50% loss from where it is now, you get out now, there will be some profit between where price is to wherever you bought in, potentially. That depends on you. But now you've got your initial capital, you've got that profit that you made, and then best case scenario, if it does come down and hold that support, now you get to buy back in much, much cheaper, and you've actually bought in with more money because you took your profit and you took your original allocation. And all you really need to do on something like this on a weekly or daily time frame is set your alerts according to vector candles. So your first alert would have been here at the bottom of this green vector, which is where price is now, and it doesn't look like there's any hope of a bounce. So would you be buying back into NIA now? No, you wouldn't. You would set it at the bottom of the next vector candle right here. And then when your alert goes off, you check again. Does it look like it's bottoming out? Am I seeing a trend change? There's no trend change. You just move your alert down again. But if there's a trend change, that is going to be the cheapest place for you to buy back in for the rest of this cycle. And that is why, whilst everyone else is panicking, I am very, very excited about what is happening right now, because it really is a second chance opportunity to build an altcoin portfolio when the time is right, but you got to do the homework now.